Hi, welcome to another episode of Lauka. In this little episode, we will just tackle the sword itself. We will try to really pay justice to the sharpness of the sculpt and the final product. I'm really astonished when you think of that this pointy, tiny, thin sword is actually part of a plastic kit. And we want to emphasize that with the placement of highlights on our non-metal, and we also want to add a little bit more of a saturated blue. All right, can't wait to show you that. Thanks for watching. Thanks for your support. Enjoy the video. All right. Here we are with our lauka model, and we're really almost done with the part here. And one thing that is still left to be detailed out is our sword. We can still see the pre-shading stage actually here. Here there's just a depth of color, and here that is what we've already detailed out a little bit earlier, but we have really kind of the very same situation also on the back. So we can repeat that step here once again. All right, so let's have a look on the shape of the blade here, and we have a really super nice, very pointy blade. And I think it's quite incredible that you think this comes out of a plastic sprue. So we really want to emphasize that sharp look of the blade, and play a little bit also more with here in the side that is facing the sky, that we're playing a little bit more with a stronger blue reflection here to really indicate that reflectiveness of the blade itself. If you have a look at the palette, this is the palette from the detailing step of the chain before. So here we have the Schmincke Titanium White. Here we have a mixture of the Japanese uniform, here with a little bit of the contrast color whitewood, and here with some black. This here is the Joe Sonia Colony Blue. This here is the Chimera color Violet. Here we have the Scarlet Red. This here is the contrast color Wildwood. Here this is some dark sea blue with a little bit of white, and here some black, also mixed with a little bit of the white. Okay. So these are the mixes that we have going on currently, and you can see this here is untouched. I just wanted to have a blue that is slightly more saturated in the mix, so I've added that from the pile of colors that I have at home, and we will use that together with a bit of white, and we're using that here as a heavy glaze tone consistency, so we can apply it, and it's a little bit softer at the end, but we can already see it accumulates quite nice and softly here in the center. Also adding a bit more here to the tip. And I want to continue with a loaded brush, and I'm just having the same color with the same consistency in the back of the brush, and I'm just adding a little bit of white here to the tip. And this is actually something that is good to mention. We're working with a palette from yesterday, so the consistencies of the colors have changed a little bit. Also the consistency here of the white on the palette. So if we have a look at the lump here, and then it's definitely thicker here, and then we have something that pulled out a little bit here. So here we have softer color that is still left there, so we can pick that to do these smaller blendings. And if we want to have something that is really super sharp and stays almost just as a pure dot white, we can pick it from the really thick one. And you can see I've used the white here to establish like quite a strong bright highlight here. We're also mixing like a mixed tone here of like an off-white on the palette. This way we can also pull it here carefully along the edge. Okay, going a bit brighter. And continuing here with our bright highlight color, like a really more opaque consistency. I'm using that here. And I'm flattening the brush a little bit on the palette. And I'm turning the figure around, so I can really also here use more the side of the brush to carefully pull that also here along that sharp side of the blade. Okay, so far so good. I want to continue and push some of the other lights here. So this here I definitely want to push that to a brighter tone. And also here to the front, I really want to have like a very nice and sharp reflection. So and I'm here also really trying to get like a good hierarchy into my highlights. So I want to make sure that here where I have like a general brighter tone on the blade itself, that also my highlight gets a bit brighter there. I like the look of the upper side of the blade, but to really be sure like how it looks here contrast wise, I want to add like the part here of the golden shaft, and we will do that next. We'll be starting with a little bit of the contrast color Wildwood. And use that just very carefully here in between. And I'm using it a little bit more generously here around these beads, gemstones, and also a little bit here on the surface. And in the next step, we're continuing here with a little bit of the rucksack 10, and you can see as the palette is still from yesterday. It's a little bit dried out, so I'm rubbing it here just on the surface to re-evoke it a bit, and then continuing a bit with the white here. And we're doing a lot of brush, and first dabbing here on that small round element, then continuing here on the top. Again, here I'm aiming really for like the top of the curve here. Just jumping back, picking up a little bit more white. Continuing here also to the lower one. And right now I'm just trying to add like small highlights to the gold parts here to really get like a good feeling for the geometry of the piece, so that really like the different volumes get their highlights, and that those are also like somewhat nicely balanced to each other. And you can see now I picked up a little bit more of the like really opaque white that was already a little bit thicker on the palette, and just to be able to emphasize like that pure white light reflection a little bit stronger. For the gemstones, I want to go for a red look. I think we have like all these little gemstones so far on the model, like there are rings on the finger, and we have these little vials, and I've painted them all in red, and I think it's just like a a nice thing if they are like 1 or 2 colors and not as sparkly as you would go, I don't know, for like a lizard man or so. So here keeping them all like harmonized can also help to get like a consistent look. And I want to put like a light dot really on the top part of it here and here. Just to the upper edge. Going back in there with a bit of the pure red, but a little bit thinner than before. And just dabbing next to our highlight. And we're also mixing a pink. And we're adding it to like the opposite side. Okay, continuing a little bit with some of the thinned down contrast color wildwood, and I'm using that here to carefully add a little bit of definition around that connection dot here, because I really want the weapon to be really very sharply readable. It's, I think, like an very important element of the figure, of like how pointy it is and how like it gives the whole sculpt a direction. So we want those details to be really spot on. And we're also working a little bit here with like an outlining of the element here. So you might think we don't have any like element directly next to it, so what's the outlining about? But you can see if we could just continue a little bit these lines here and really sharpen them, so that also the edge here to the outside is really nicely distinguishable. And for now, I just want to add like a little bit of like a highlight line around the blade on the lower side, but I will not do that with the colony blue from the Joe Sonia paint, but I will just do that with dark sea blue and some white. And that line that I'm just painting simulates the light that is actually bouncing back from the ground. Alright, for the other side of the blade we will approach it pretty much in the very same way, so we're also placing the highlights in somewhat the same area. Really just like maybe a half a mil next to the other highlight on the other side, so they don't really end up being on the very same spot. But as you don't see both sides at the very same time, we can use that same kind of setup to introduce our lights. And here for this side I'm also just first introducing like the main highlights using the loaded brush. As you can see, the base color is already like a little bit darker than it was on the other side, so this here is a little bit more like the shadow side. Also again here pushing a little bit the outlines. See that we need like a little bit of a darker red tone up here to outline the gemstone. Okay, we will continue with a bit of the colony blue and down to like a between light and medium glaze tone consistency, and kind of a bit of opaque white paint. So yeah, see I'm pushing the little brush around. I didn't want to actually go here into the shadow side, we have to correct that. I'm using a bit of dark sea blue for that. And I'm also intensifying that bright transition here. And something like that super thin sword blade here is really a good opportunity to practice a little bit also with a little brush. So picking up a bit of the thinner paint in the back of the brush and a bit of white in the tip. And the nice thing here is, because we have like nothing to the top and the bottom of the brush, we can just freely move it around, have like a little bit more of the opaque paint here, and thinking, oh, we need to dilute it, and then we can work with a little bit more of the color from the back of the brush, and really like quite easily manipulate what color we want to pick from the brush, and can also add like small highlights like this here. This is not perfect, but it's already for like sharp blending like that. This already looks fine, and we can continue on top of that once this is entirely dry. While that dries, I will also add like a little bit of like the highlight to the front. Now having that lighter glaze in the back of the, well, having the lighter glaze in the brush, I can also just use that and soft out my highlight here. And continue by picking up a bit more white again. And same as we did on the other side, we will also just work with the highlight tone that we've mixed on the palette, and use that to carefully add like a highlight on that sharp edge here of the blade. We're also here playing a little bit with the variation of the intensity, so adding like a small light here and a bit like a brighter dot there. That looks clearly too much, so I can just like rub it off with the damp acid of the brush and just wipe it off a little on the finger. Mm-hmm. We're again using the side of the brush here to get like a nice and defined middle line. Then with black and some dark sea blue, we're using that here to clean up some of the mistakes that we've been doing earlier, or that I've been doing earlier. And I'm also adding like a little bit of like a darker color just directly here where we have like our highlight. Then doing that to both sides. And also here, definitely when we look at the top of the blade on the front, we want to have that like nice and sharp reflective line, so we have to connect our highlights here. Okay, I've added an additional depth of an orange color here. This is from the Army Painter, the Dry Rust color. I'm adding a bit of black, and we're using that for the lower side of our blade, so as if it would maybe pick up a little bit of like a reflective color from the ground. So we'll add that here and also to the tip. Adding a bit more of the orange and intensifying the reflection color here. So adding a bit of white, but we have to be careful with that step, because you don't want to brighten it up too much or brighten it up too much. And yeah, just fading it out a little bit here with the original orange again. And I actually really like the effect. It's very subtle, and I think like if it's positioned in like the original position, we can really hardly see it, but it just adds like a little bit of like a sparkle there. All right. All right. Just adding like the last bits here of the brighter highlight again, just to get like a sharp definition line there. All right. Yeah, that concludes our little pointy sword here, and I can't wait to put all the other parts together. Okay, we will do that in the next chapter. All right.